I should have been overflowing with joy at finally owning the home of my dreams, but instead, I find myself dreading each weekend. The reason? My husband's parents visit every single week, and each time, I'm treated like a maid. Far from getting a break from work-related stress, I only grow more exhausted with every day off. Reaching my breaking point, I decided to invite my own parents over, hoping it would deter my in-laws from their constant visits. But when I told my husband, he erupted in anger. "Don't you dare invite your parents. If you don't like living here, you can leave." "Fine, if that's how it's going to be, I'll leave. He'll be the one to regret this decision." My name is Emma, and I've been married to Michael for 5 years. We were previously renting, so the purchase of our new home was a big milestone for us. However, it didn't escape Michael's parents. "Oh, Emma, we heard you're finally buying your own house," his mother exclaimed. "Yes, that's right. If you need any help finding places, just let us know. We're more than happy to assist," she added. "Thank you. We might start visiting some open houses soon," I responded, though the idea of their continued involvement made me uneasy. I had envisioned selecting our new home with Michael as a personal and carefully considered process, but my mother-in-law had other plans. Just yesterday, she showed up unannounced with a brochure for a plot of land that's up for sale. "Emma, what do you think about this property? It's close to the subway station and has enough space for a duplex house." A duplex house? It dawned on me that they must be planning to move in with us. That's why she's been so involved in our property search, offering suggestions like, "It would be better to live near the subway to avoid walking too much," or "A nearby supermarket would be so convenient." I thought she was simply being helpful, but it turns out she was pushing for features she prefers, clearly with the expectation of sharing our new home. I immediately brought this up with Michael. "Michael, your mother came over this afternoon with a brochure for a plot of land. It looks like she and your father might want to live with us." "Oh yeah, she did mention something like that," he replied. "What? You heard it from your mom? Why didn't you tell me something this important?" "I thought we'd discuss it once it was more finalized." "Do you have objections, Emma?" "Yes, I do. I envisioned us living alone together. Besides, your parents are still healthy, aren't they? While I can't predict the future, I believe it's best for us to live separately for now to maintain a good relationship." "I understand how you feel, Emma," Michael said. Michael listened to my concerns and managed to convince his parents that we weren't planning to live together at this time. After hearing his reasoning, it seems his parents finally relented. I was grateful to him for handling the situation so well. "Thank you, Michael." "No problem, Emma. If your parents want to live with them, we won't force it. Instead, let's make sure my parents visit our new home frequently after we move in." Eventually, Michael and I found the perfect house and moved in. As soon as we settled, his parents came over to check out our new place. "Emma, congratulations on the move. Your house is wonderful," his mother exclaimed. It seemed she was pleased with our home. "You're always welcome to visit," I replied warmly. That evening, we all enjoyed a meal together at the dinner table. The following weekend, I suggested to Michael that we go shopping for living room decorations, but he seemed hesitant. "Can we put off the shopping for another time? Do you have plans for the weekend?" "My parents wanted to come over," I explained. "What? They just visited last week. They seem to really like this house. Remember, you said, feel free to visit anytime, right?" "Well, yes, I did say that. But could you handle dinner and entertain them a bit?" Soon after, his parents started visiting every week, and their demands grew with each visit. "Emma, it's been so hot lately, and I'm feeling drained. Something light, like noodles, would be fine for lunch. But for dinner, I'd like something hearty like steak. Also, do you know the new pastry shop near the station? It's the talk of the town, so I think it'd be perfect for dessert. Could you pick up some?" They began arriving early in the morning, giving orders, never helping with chores, and then leaving. By the second visit, they even assumed it was okay to stay overnight. "Where's the typhoon? And since your parents enjoy a good breakfast, could you have it ready for us first thing in the morning?" The demands from my in-laws kept increasing. Between managing their needs and my work fatigue, I barely had a chance to rest on weekends, which only added to my exhaustion. Reaching my breaking point, I made a heartfelt plea to my husband. "Michael, I really need your mom and dad to stop staying over every weekend. We can't just refuse them. They've made it clear they want to visit." "Well, you could set some boundaries." Look, with working on weekdays and taking care of your parents from morning till night on weekends, I'm left with no time to rest. Consider this. If we were living with them full-time, it'd be every single day, not just weekends. They originally wanted to move in with us, but since you strongly opposed it, we prioritized your wishes and they agreed to back off. Compared to living together, having them over on weekends might actually be the better option. But it was becoming unbearable to continue this situation indefinitely. As I wrestled with what to do, my mother called. "Oh, Emma, how are you?" "Sorry, Mom. I haven't been in touch lately. I'm managing, somehow." "You sound a bit down. Is everything okay?" "Well, actually, I shared with my mother the difficulties I was facing with my mother-in-law's constant visits since our move. My mother expressed concern and said, "That sounds really challenging. I can imagine how overwhelming it must be with settling in and buying new things. I've been holding off on calling because I know your in-laws visit every weekend. I haven't even invited my own mother to our new house yet. Maybe if I invite her over, your in-laws might hold off on their visits for that weekend." That evening, I brought up my idea to Michael when he got home from work. "Hey Michael, I'd like to invite my parents over this weekend. Is that okay with you?" His response was unexpected. "No, my parents have already planned to come this weekend." "But your parents have visited so many times already." "My parents haven't been over even once." "That's because your parents haven't mentioned wanting to visit. My mother has been patient, waiting for us to get settled. She's really eager to come." "Oh really? Well, then, how about scheduling your parents for when mine aren't coming? They've waited this long, they can wait a bit longer. Isn't it odd to always prioritize your parents, who are here so often? Can't your parents wait until next week?" "You're my wife now. It's natural for us to prioritize my parents. Anyway, you should let your parents know this weekend isn't a good time." "I don't want to do that." "You should just not invite your parents. If I can't have my parents over because of that, then your parents shouldn't come to our house either. They gave you to me, so they should be prepared not to see their daughter all the time." "That's unreasonable. Why shouldn't I be able to invite my parents? Even though I'm married, isn't it natural for them to want to see their family?" Despite Michael's firm refusal, I proposed a compromise. "All right, let's skip this weekend, but from now on, let's try to alternate inviting each other's parents on a regular basis. How about that?" That's exactly. If you're going to suggest something as troublesome as this, we might as well not invite your parents at all. Let's just end this conversation." "But we haven't resolved anything yet. I've made up my mind. I'm not letting your parents come over. If you don't like it, you can leave." No matter what I said, Michael only focused on his parents, never considering me or my own family. His refusal to discuss the matter and his insistence on his own way finally pushed me to my limit. "Fine, if you're that determined, Michael, I'll leave. And when that happens, it'll be too late for regrets." "Regrets? What would I regret if you're gone? Just remember this. I won't accept any apologies. Don't come back asking to return." Leaving behind a Michael who was laughing loudly, I went home and shared what had happened with my parents. They agreed that Michael's stance was unreasonable, with my father particularly upset. A person who can't respect their family is fundamentally flawed. "I'm disappointed in Michael. You should stay here and not go back to that house." His words reassured me that I wasn't at fault. Feeling a sense of relief, I resolved to pursue a divorce. A few months later, I received a call from Michael. "Hey, how much longer are you planning to stay away? Have you forgotten what day it is?" "This Saturday." He spoke with a tone of urgency. "Oh, right, it's the day we were supposed to host your co-workers at our new house." "Yes, exactly. We've been planning this since we moved. Remember? But isn't your mother-in-law supposed to come that day? Why don't you tell your co-workers that my parents are visiting and cancel the gathering?" "There's no way I can do that. I've invited a new boss for my department, and canceling now could impact my future at work." "I don't care. You're the one who kicked me out, remember? Is this really the time to be arguing? Stop sulking and come back. We need to start preparing for everyone's arrival or we won't be ready in time." "I'm not coming back to that house." "What? Are you really okay with putting my job at risk?" "I don't mind. I'm planning to leave you." "Leave? Are you serious?" "Yes, I've been considering it since I left the house and my parents agree with me." "Your parents too? They're as out of touch as you are." "Do whatever you want. I'll have my parents help with the preparations for hosting my coworkers. I don't need you anymore." You're going to regret this. That's what I should be saying. Goodbye. I ended the call abruptly. By now, Michael was probably frantically contacting his in-laws, scrambling to prepare for the office gathering. Since his in-laws had made themselves so comfortable, it was about time they faced some inconvenience. That problematic weekend, our home phone rang in the afternoon. When I answered, Michael's flustered voice came through. "Why is Emma answering the phone? I was trying to reach my new boss." "Why?" "Well, because this is my house." "Emma's house? Don't tell me the new boss is Emma's father." "Yes, my father used to work at Michael's company. He's been away from the main office for a few years as an advisor for a related company's new venture, but he's set to return to the main office next month and will be Michael's new boss." I knew about the internal announcement, but I couldn't reveal it until the embargo was lifted, even to Michael, my husband. I assumed he would figure it out when he saw the boss's name in the announcement, but it seems he didn't check it properly. Michael began to plead desperately. "My mother has prepared expensive ingredients and fine alcohol, but no one is coming." When I contacted my colleagues, they said there was a huge commotion at the company because I didn't invite the new boss. If the boss doesn't come, no one else will. They've been asking me to convince my father to come and clear up the misunderstanding. Michael continued. "Misunderstanding? It's not a misunderstanding. It's a fact. You said, 'Don't ever invite my parents to our house,' didn't you?" "I didn't know your father was my boss at the time." "Then the situation is different now." "That's a rather convenient excuse. I asked you repeatedly if you'd regret this, didn't I?" "Well, it's too late for regrets now. You're responsible for cleaning up your own mess." I hung up before Michael could respond. I informed my father about Michael's call, but understandably, my father had no intention of visiting. There's no need to go to the house of someone who disregards his own family. My father was even more enraged. My father is scary when he's angry. He was looking forward to using the expensive ingredients and alcohol he bought for today, but it seems all that effort was for nothing. The next day, Michael arrived at our house, looking pale and distressed. "Emma, I'm sorry for everything I've done. Let's start over. Please come back home." Instead of me, who was staring at him in shock, my father spoke up. "Start over? Do you even understand what you've done?" Michael, looking pale, knelt before my father. "Sir, I'm deeply sorry for my actions. I'm here to apologize. You've ignored my daughter for months and haven't even bothered to visit her. I didn't realize you'd be so unreliable." "That's not the issue. I've been busy with work." "Oh, really? I heard you're also working weekends." "Weekends?" "Well," Michael stuttered, "it's likely his mother was visiting him every weekend." Michael, who never did any housework, would have struggled without her help. I'm sure she was also assisting him during the weekdays, taking advantage of my absence. My father, sensing the underlying issue, said sternly, "Forget it. It seems you get along well with your parents. It looks like you rushed into marriage before you were ready to stand on your own." "That's not true. I do respect Emma's feelings and even turned down the idea of living with my parents." "Is it really natural for a couple to decide whether to live with their parents? You kept pressuring Emma to accept your parents and never listened to her. How does that show you're prioritizing her feelings?" "Well, and marriage means that both families become connected. Yet you invited your parents over every weekend while completely shutting us out. How could you disregard Emma's family like that?" "I didn't know you were going to be my boss. If I had known, I would have invited you before my parents." "That's exactly why I say you're self-centered. You don't understand anything. People like you should be in a leadership role. My department doesn't need someone as selfish as you." "But—" Silence. "Get out of my house now and don't ever come back." Afterward, my father advised his superior to remove Michael from his department and reassign him to a regional branch. With Michael's reputation for selfishness, no one defended him. Even his parents, who had once doted on him, couldn't follow him to a remote location. They now see him only once a year, if that. Meanwhile, I've been enjoying the comfortable life at my parents' house after finalizing my divorce with Michael. I focus on my work during the week and spend weekends with the people I love. Reflecting on my past, I appreciate my new freedom and the ability to live a normal, satisfying life. Moving forward, I want to cherish my parents and enjoy living at my own pace. "My parents are living in this house, so you need to go back to your parents' place," my husband said suddenly. I was taken aback by his words. He seemed to think he was making perfect sense. "What now? You got complaints?" don't argue with what I'm saying. I'm totally okay with divorcing you, he asserted. Lately, he'd been cold to me, and I had my own grievances. I had been considering divorce as well, but I didn't think being kicked out of the house was fair. I mean, I'm the one paying the $1,800 for the living expenses. I wondered if he even remembered that. As I stared at him in disbelief, he lost his patience and snapped, "Get out of this house already. If you're here, my parents won't feel comfortable coming." I truly didn't understand why I had to leave, but I said, "All right, I'll take everything I bought with me." Once I agreed, my husband, contented, said, "Get on with it then," and left. I immediately called a resale shop. "My name is Emily. I currently live with my husband Robert, who's 5 years my senior. We met when mutual friends introduced us, and we unexpectedly bumped into each other while hanging out with them. This led to us spending a day off together. I'm actually thinking of becoming a voice actor. I'm studying for it now," Robert said. Listening to Robert, I thought his deep voice was indeed impressive. I've always had a soft spot for soothing voices and felt drawn to his. He probably sensed my interest. Soon, we exchanged contact information and suggested hanging out alone. Before we knew it, we started dating. Neither of us explicitly said we should date, but we found ourselves in a relationship. Being young at the time, I thought this must be what adult romance feels like. I had just graduated from college and started working, so maybe I was taken by the idea of dating someone who seemed so mature compared to me. Seeing this, my best friend Ashley expressed concern. "Are you sure about dating someone 5 years older?" I confidently replied, "It's fine. Age gap relationships aren't that uncommon nowadays. I really like Robert and he feels the same about me. There's nothing to worry about." Seeing my conviction, even Ashley, who was initially concerned, said, "Well, if you say so, Emily." Robert and I continued dating for about 3 years, and he eventually brought up marriage. I had mentioned him to my parents, and although they knew he was 5 years older, they were eager to meet him. Given this pressure, I often found myself wondering when he would propose. He proposed to me during one of his usual visits to my apartment, where we just hang out and relax. Normally, I'd expect a proposal to happen in a more romantic setting, but this casual approach felt very much like Robert. I didn't mind it. In response to Robert's proposal, I said, "Sure, let's get married." Perhaps we were both a bit nonchalant about it. After that, we went to visit each other's parents, but to be honest, I didn't really get along with Robert's folks. When we arrived at Robert's family home, the entryway and living room were crammed with what looked like antiques, though I couldn't tell where they were from. From what I could see, they all seemed to be replicas or imitation pieces. As we were ushered into the living room and met Robert's parents, both were dressed in high-end branded clothing and decked out in gaudy jewelry as they greeted me. It felt like I was meeting a stereotypical nouveau riche couple. No matter how I looked at it, our tastes and values seemed too different for us to get along. Robert's mother even remarked, "You look so average, don't you?" comparing her appearance to mine, which was quite rude. I was taken aback that the parents of the man I was thinking of marrying could be like this. But in the end, it's Robert and I who are getting married. If I don't get along with my future in-laws, then I don't really have to interact with them much. So, I decided not to let it bother me too much. After Robert and I got married and moved into our condo to start our life together, Robert came to me looking a bit anxious. "Hey, who was that woman in the blue dress among your guests at the wedding?" "Which woman in a blue dress?" There were several of my guests who wore blue dresses, so just based on that information, I couldn't figure out who he was talking about. The one who gave a speech as your best friend." "Do you mean Ashley?" "Yes, she was wearing the blue dress." Upon hearing this, Robert muttered, "So it was Ashley." "What's wrong with Ashley?" I asked, noticing he seemed visibly flustered. "Oh, it's nothing major. The other day when I was headed to work, I thought I saw someone who looked like her. That's when I remembered she had given a speech as your best friend at the wedding." I was puzzled at his sudden interest in Ashley and why he was so flustered, but he just chuckled and said, "It's nothing really," and retreated to his room before I could ask anything further. A little while later, I got a call from my best friend Ashley with some news. "Listen, Emily, my boyfriend's coming back to the US next year." Ashley had been dating her boyfriend since high school. They'd known each other since elementary school, but he had moved away middle school. Since then, they had been writing letters to each other. By the time they got to high school, they were reunited, and that's when he confessed to her. I always felt content listening to Ashley's bittersweet love stories. I always enjoyed hearing about her love adventures. Her boyfriend, after working for a few years at his company, got transferred to an international branch and had been away from the US for some time. Despite the distance, their communication never faltered, and they remained a close-knit couple. Do you think he might propose once he's back, and then you guys will get married? Oh, Emily, you're always so quick to jump to conclusions. Just make sure to invite me to the wedding. I promise I'll give a heartwarming speech. Of course, after that touching speech you gave at your wedding, I'll definitely need you to do the same for mine. Don't set the bar too high. We shared a laugh over our tea. We could talk about anything and everything, completely trusting one another. If one of us had a problem, the other would be there, always ready to offer a shoulder to lean on. It was around this time that I started noticing Robert coming home later and later. Working late again today. Yeah? You think I shouldn't work or something? Even after getting married, Robert held on to his dream of becoming a voice actor. While studying for that career, he couldn't quite see the results and had to work part-time jobs to make ends meet. Yet all the money Robert made from his part-time jobs went straight to his voice acting classes, so I had to cover all our living expenses. That's why we couldn't really save up a shared savings. After a while of being married, I realized Robert wasn't willing to give up on his dream for the sake of our family. I kept wondering if part-timers really had to work so much overtime. Robert's daily late nights added to my worries. Hey, haven't you been working too much lately? They shouldn't be making you do so much overtime, even if it's just a part-time job. I told you, I'm fine. More money is always better. Just keep your opinions to yourself. By that time, Robert had stopped calling me by my name and just referred to me as you. When we got married, I genuinely believed he would speak to me more gently and frequently, but after our marriage, I ended up hearing harsh words from him most of the time. The once gentle and deep voice of Robert had turned solely into a harsh one. He seemed to be drinking a lot, and sometimes his voice became raspy. Voice acting depends heavily on a healthy throat, so it worried me that Robert, who wanted to be a voice actor, wasn't taking care of his. But even that seemed to bother him. Slowly, he began to avoid talking to me, and eventually, he would ignore me even when we crossed paths at home. That's when I got a call from Ashley. She said she had something to discuss, so I suggested we meet up since I had my own concerns. We decided to chat in a karaoke booth so that no one could overhear us. Ashley seemed very cautious and had specifically reserved a room where she could see the counter and staff from the door. You specifically chose this room? Yes, I wanted a spot where the staff could see if there was a suspicious person outside our door. A suspicious person? Is that related to what you wanted to discuss? At my words, Ashley nodded. She had felt like someone was following her ever since she left her job about a month ago. Now she even felt followed on her days off. The reason Ashley had chosen a room where the staff could easily see was that she thought the person stalking her might try to eavesdrop on our conversation. Did you talk to the police about it? I tried, but since there's no actual contact, they can't do much. What about your boyfriend? He's coming back in a month. I thought I'd discuss it with him too, but I wanted to talk to you first. Someone close by. I see. Ashley hadn't gotten a good look at her stalker because she was too scared, so she didn't know if it was a man or a woman. So I decided to stand at a distance and identify the person who was stalking Ashley, and through that, I came to understand who it was. Although I couldn't discuss my rocky relationship with Robert in retrospect, maybe it was for the best, because the one following my best friend Ashley was none other than my husband Robert. He would tell me he had to work overtime daily, but after finishing his shift, he would lurk near Ashley's workplace and tail her when she left. I couldn't believe that the person scaring Ashley was someone so close to me. When I found out, I was beside myself. The look on Robert's face when he was following Ashley was downright creepy. He had this sleazy, unsettling grin. I fell in love and married this man. The instant I saw his face, the love that had lasted for years went cold. I told Ashley the truth and advised her to move immediately. With the help of her coworkers, she managed to have someone drive her close to her new place from the underground company parking lot for a while. After Ashley and I took these measures, Robert became increasingly frustrated, and one day, that frustration exploded. My parents are going to live here, so you should go back to your parents' house, Robert declared suddenly. I was taken aback by his words, yet Robert seemed convinced he was making perfect sense. Got a problem with that, he continued. If you oppose what I'm saying, I'm fine with divorcing you. While I had many grievances with him and even thought that divorce might not be so bad, I did think he could just kick me out of our home. I'm the one paying $1,800 for our monthly expenses. I wonder if Robert even remembers that, I said skeptically. He lost his temper. Just get out already. My parents can't move in if you're still here. Why do I have to leave? I don't get it at all, I replied, but eventually said, fine, I'll take everything I bought with me. Seeing my agreement, Robert said, just hurry up, and walked away. I immediately contacted a local buyback service. The next day, they came to our apartment. At first, Robert smirked, thinking I was moving out. However, when he saw the workers assessing all the furniture and appliances, his eyes widened in shock. After they had finished evaluating everything except what was in Robert's room, a staff member handed me a quote saying, the total value is $22,000. I promptly signed, saying, all right, sell it all. Robert, coming back to his senses, grabbed my arm with concern. Why are you selling everything? My parents are going to live here. How can they with no furniture? I shook off his grip. What are you talking about? When we got married, you said you were broke because you were paying for your acting classes. You begged me to handle the rent, furniture, and living expenses. I never imagined you were that broke. I felt deceived. Remember the $1,800 monthly expenses I've been covering. From now on, you'll pay that. And with your parents moving in, I bet it'll be even more, I declared. Robert went pale, but he quickly tried to regain his composure. Thought you could talk about money and I'd cancel the divorce? Who do you think you are? I've already gotten close to a rich lady, he continued. And then I remembered Robert following Ashley recently, if what he considers close was his stalker behavior. Then Robert seriously diluted. Ashley definitely comes from a wealthy family. Her grandfather was a businessman, and now her father has taken over. Ashley truly is the perfect heiress, but she doesn't flaunt it. She spends just like me and our friends, and no one judges her based on her family's wealth. However, Robert seemed to have learned about my best friend Ashley's wealthy background and decided she'd be a better match. Could he possibly think that if two people are the same age, the wealthier one is better? That infuriates me, but Ashley would never marry Robert. Ashley's boyfriend, whom she's been dating since high school, is coming back to the States soon. They'll likely get married, she mentioned, feeling really creeped out because someone was stalking her every day. I remarked upon hearing he wasn't close with Ashley and that she found him creepy. Robert was floored. I always escorted Ashley home, he insisted. You're lucky you weren't reported to the cops, I shot back, but I didn't know about any boyfriend. He's been abroad. She chose me over some unknown guy. They've been pen pals since elementary school and apparently talk almost daily. And unlike you, who's only been working part-time jobs, her boyfriend is a successful man recognized even by her father. Robert looked utterly defeated as I spoke. When the buyback workers had taken all the furniture and appliances, he seemed to recover somewhat. Guess you are all I have. You'll support my dream of becoming a voice actor forever, right? He asked, striking a pose. I gave him a cold look and said, excuse me, I've already been to the divorce lawyer's office and started the process. Let's communicate through our attorneys from now on. Robert, perhaps thinking I still had feelings for him, clung to my waist. Don't say things like that. How have we been getting along all this time? Getting along? When? Ever since you found out my best friend Ashley is a wealthy heiress, you've been cold to me and started hanging around her. Right after I married you. I realized it was a mistake. Robert started crying like a child, even though he's 5 years older than me. Seeing him cry like that only made my already dwindling affection for him drop even further. At this point, I couldn't stand being in the same room with him. Just cut it out. Oh, by the way, I told your uncle who's letting us rent this apartment about our divorce. My uncle? You know he's strict, right? Well, I've been paying all the rent and living expenses until now. So when I told him you might not be able to afford it if I leave, he said he'd make you work for him. That means I won't be able to continue my voice acting studies. You hardly ever practice anyways. Maybe it's time to face reality. Anyway, if you come near Ashley again, I'll report you to the police immediately. Goodbye. I left the house, determined to never look back. I plan to return to my parents' house for now, but I'm thinking of moving closer to my job if I find a good place. As for Robert, it seems his uncle kept his word and made Robert work at his company. Soon after, Robert's parents, who had been planning to leech off their son after he married the wealthy heiress, also moved into the apartment. They too were taken to work at the uncle's company. Seems like the whole family had a habit of taking advantage of others. I'm just glad I was able to get away from such a toxic family. Age difference doesn't really matter, but I think I need to choose my next partner more carefully. On another note, after things with Robert settled, I received a wedding invitation from Ashley herself. She introduced me to her longtime boyfriend, and I truly wish them all the best. My first marriage didn't work out, but I hope Ashley's marriage will last for many years to come.